From a hidden position in the east field, the temporal dead zone Travis launched a high-altitude weather balloon. It was no ordinary balloon. Its mylar surface had been coated with a radar-reflective paint, and attached to it was a small battery-powered signal repeater. Balloon is away, Travis reported, tracking its rapid ascent on a handheld monitor, climbing at 300 feet per minute. In the command center, Eric monitored the satellite's downlink frequency. At the same time, he activated a low-power microwave emitter they had positioned at the triangle, aiming it directly at the ascending balloon. "Emitter is active," Eric said. "I'm painting the target." The effect was instantaneous and precisely calculated. To the satellite's sophisticated sensors, the balloon would not appear as a simple mylar object. The microwave beam reflecting off its surface and being amplified by the repeater would create a complex high-energy radar signature. It would look like a solid metallic object maneuvering intelligently against the wind. A classic UAP. But the trick had a second layer. While the satellite's radar and electronic sensors would scream anomaly, its optical cameras would see something else. Lena and Chris were positioned on Homestead Ridge with a high-powered spotlight fitted with a custom-made lens. As the balloon reached its apex, they switched it on. The lens fractured the light, projecting a diffuse, shimmering, vaguely triangular shape into the sky. It was a visual ghost, a trick of the light with no substance. For the 15 minutes the satellite was in range, they maintained the illusion. The satellite would record a high-energy, intelligently moving radar target, but the visual data would show only a faint, indistinct shimmer that defied clear analysis. It was the perfect paranormal morsel, intriguing, impossible to dismiss, but utterly lacking in the hard, verifiable data needed for any real scientific or military conclusion. It was designed to frustrate, to be cataloged in a file labeled unexplained and left to gather dust. "All right, bringing it down," Travis announced as the satellite passed over the horizon. He sent a signal to a small charge on the balloon which ruptured the mylar. The repeater attached to a small parachute drifted harmlessly back to Earth, its location tracked by GPS for retrieval. The light on the ridge winked out. In the command center, the team let out a collective nervous breath. Their first performance in the Ghost War was complete. "Did they buy it?" Chris asked. "We'll never know for sure," Eric said, shutting down the emitter, "but we've given them a ghost, and the best thing about chasing ghosts is that you can never catch them." It was a strange, unsettling new role for a team of scientists. They were no longer seeking the truth. They were manufacturing a lie to protect a greater truth. Chapter 24, The Third Reciprocity. While the public-facing side of their operation became a theater of illusion, the private side delved deeper into the mystery. They built their new transmitter, a low-energy device designed to whisper, not shout, into the mesa. For a week, they broadcast their reply to the entity's data dump. They sent the double helix of DNA, a rotating model of their solar system, the rhythmic beat of a human heart, and the sound of whale songs, a terrestrial dirge, to answer the entity's song of a dead star. They wrapped it all in the mathematical language of inquiry they had decoded. Then they fell silent and listened. For 3 days, there was nothing. The 1.2 gigahertz frequency remained dead. The quiet was heavy with an almost unbearable tension. Had they offended it? Had their message been too simple, too arrogant? On the fourth night, Lena was alone in the command center watching the silent monitors when a new reading began to scroll across the screen. It wasn't the 1.2 gigahertz signal. It was a feed from a network of sensitive seismometers they had buried across the property. A rhythmic low-frequency vibration was emanating from deep within the mesa. It was not an earthquake, it was a steady, rhythmic pulse. A thrumming so low it was almost felt rather than heard. She called the others. Eric immediately put the signal through a spectral analysis. The pattern was incredibly complex, a symphony of micro-vibrations. He isolated the primary frequency. It was 1.618 hertz. Phi, the golden ratio. It's changed its medium again. Travis breathed his eyes wide, from radio to light, and now to vibration. It's answering us. But it was more than an answer. The team's biomonitors, which they wore as a safety precaution, began to show a strange coherence. Their heart rates, which should have been fluctuating normally, started to subtly synchronize with the 1.618 hertz's pulse from the mesa. "Look at our biometrics," Lena said, pointing to the screen. "Our heart rate variability is aligning with the signal. It's entrainment." The entity was not just broadcasting a mathematical constant. It was broadcasting a state of being. The harmonious inquiry it had first signaled was now a physical influence, a resonant field that was subtly, gently tuning their own biological systems to its rhythm. It was a profound and deeply intimate form of communication. It wasn't just showing them its nature. It was inviting them to share in it. The message was clear: I am harmony. You can be too. Chapter 25, The Glitch in the Deception. Their success was short-lived. The Ghost War was a game for two players, and the other player was making its move. It happened during what they had planned as their most elaborate piece of theater yet. They were using a swarm of 50 small drones programmed to fly in a complex, non-ballistic pattern, their lights blinking in a sequence that mimicked the prime numbers. To any observer, it would be an undeniable, intelligent display. As the drone swarm reached the center of the bubble, Eric's threat detection system, an array of passive sensors he had designed to listen for any unfamiliar electronic signals, screamed to life. "We have an intruder," he announced, his voice dangerously calm. "Unidentified signal, very low power, highly directional, and it's not ours." On his screen, a new icon appeared. It was a drone, but its signal profile was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was almost perfectly silent, its emissions masked by a sophisticated stealth protocol. It had slipped past their electronic tripwires and was moving fast, ignoring their dancing swarm of decoy drones completely. "Where is it headed?" Lena asked, her heart pounding. Eric brought up a 3D tactical map of the ranch. The path of the intruder drone was a straight, unwavering line. "It's making a beeline," he said grimly, "for the concrete patch. It's going directly for the sealed borehole." Jones's organization had not been fooled. Their theatrical haunting had been ignored. They had bypassed the smokescreen and were going straight for the source, guided by intelligence the team couldn't begin to fathom. "It's a scanner," Travis said, analyzing the faint emissions they could detect. "It's using some kind of subsurface resonance technology. It's trying to get a picture of what's down there right through our concrete plug." They were defenseless. To interfere with the drone would be an open admission that they were hiding something. To let it scan would be to give Jones a glimpse into the labyrinth. As the stealth drone hovered over the borehole, the ground beneath it began to vibrate. The low 1.618 hertz's hum from the mesa returned, but this time it was not a gentle thrum. It was a deep, resonant growl. The bubble, which had been quiescent, flared to life, not as a shimmer, but as a hard, sharp wall of energy. On their monitors, they saw the stealth drone suddenly lurch as if hit by a physical blow. It tumbled out of the air, its stealth systems failing in a shower of sparks, and crashed into the sagebrush. The mesa had defended itself. It had protected its own secret. But in doing so, it had confirmed Jones's suspicions beyond any doubt. The Ghost War was over. A hot war was about to begin. Chapter 26, The Bleed-Through Effect. In the tense days following the drone crash, an uneasy quiet once again fell over the ranch. Jones's organization made no immediate move, but the team knew they were being watched more intensely than ever. The destroyed stealth drone had been a message from the Mesa, but it was also a priceless piece of intelligence for their hidden adversaries. The incident, however, had triggered a new and deeply unsettling change, not in the ranch, but within one of them. Lena began to have dreams. They were not ordinary dreams. They were vivid, hyper-realistic, and utterly alien. She dreamt she was floating in a silent ruby-red nebula, watching newborn stars ignite like cosmic embers. She dreamt of crystalline cities that chimed with silent music under the light of a dying Sunday. She saw the quasi-crystalline molecule from the second signal not as a diagram, but from the inside, feeling the strange, cold hum of its alien life force. She would wake up shivering her pillow damp with tears, filled with a sense of profound ancestral grief for a world she had never known. It's the entrainment Eric theorized when she finally confessed what was happening. The resonance from the Mesa tuned your biology. When it flared up to defend itself against that drone, it must have strengthened the connection. It's not just influencing your heart rate anymore, Lena. It's bleeding through. The memories, the dirge, the star nursery, the vision of its own biology were not just data being transmitted, they were experiences, and she was now somehow sharing in them. She became the team's unwilling psychic, a human receiver for the entity's silent, sorrowful thoughts. The bleed-through effect gave them a new, terrifying insight. One afternoon, while studying the printouts of the archive's equations, she was struck by a wave of dizziness. The alien symbols on the page seemed to shift and swim, and for a fleeting moment she understood one of them. It wasn't a translation, it was an intuitive comprehension, a flash of insight that bypassed language entirely. She stumbled back from the table, her hand flying to her mouth. "Lena, what is it? What's wrong?" Travis asked, rushing to her side. "The dirge," she whispered, her eyes wide with horror. The sound of its star dying. It wasn't a natural death. She pointed a trembling finger at the equation she had been looking at, a complex spiral that they had been unable to decipher. "That's not physics." She said, her voice choked with emotion. "It's a weapon. That's what killed their Sunday." The truth was a physical blow. The entity was not just a survivor of a natural catastrophe. It was a refugee from a war fought with forces that could extinguish stars. And it